Here's something nobody tells you in school. Your ancestors were having sex constantly, not occasionally, not on weekends, constantly. And it wasn't because they were irresponsible or had nothing better to do. It was because their entire biology was engineered for it. The real question isn't why ancient humans had so much sex. The real question is why we have so little. We're talking about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, people who spent their days chasing animals, digging up roots, and apparently finding a lot of time in between for everything else. And the first thing you need to understand is that sex for early humans wasn't recreational. It wasn't even primarily about reproduction, it was social infrastructure. In most animal species, sex is a seasonal event. Wolves do it once a year, elephants once every few years. There are beetles that mate and then immediately die, which honestly sounds like a rough deal. But humans are one of the only species on Earth with no mating season whatsoever. Your body doesn't care, it's always ready. That's weird. Evolutionarily speaking, that is deeply weird. Maintaining that level of biological readiness costs energy. Evolution doesn't pay for things that don't work. Early human groups were small, 15 to 50 people typically. Everyone knew everyone. Resources were shared. Survival depended on cooperation, on people actually wanting to work together, protect each other, share food when one person came back empty-handed. And here's the problem with getting 50 stressed, hungry primates to cooperate. It's genuinely hard. Other primates solve this with hierarchy. Chimps have a dominant male who controls access to food and females. There's constant violence, constant jockeying for position, constant tension. Humans evolved a different solution. Sex, frequent, non-seasonal, broadly distributed, became a social bonding mechanism. Not between just two people. Across the group, there's significant evidence that early human mating structures were far more fluid than anything we'd recognize today. Large testes in primates are a biological indicator of sperm competition. Your anatomy is a historical document. Bonobos use sex to resolve almost every social conflict. Tension over food? Sex. Stranger enters the group? Sex. And they are, by primate standards, extraordinarily peaceful. Humans aren't bonobos, but we share about 98.7% of our DNA with them. Something carried over. Early humans had no reliable food supply. Every meal was uncertain. Stress levels, cortisol, adrenaline were chronically elevated. Sex counteracts this directly. Oxytocin, released during physical intimacy, suppresses cortisol. You feel briefly that everything is going to be okay. In a world where everything might genuinely not be okay, where a predator could show up, where the rains might not come, where half your group might be dead by next season. That feeling was not a luxury. It was a coping mechanism. It was medicine. The groups that used it got better at tolerating each other under pressure. They shared food more readily. They cooperated during hunts. Their children had more adults invested in their survival. They outcompeted the groups that didn't. So evolution selected for it, hard. In most mammals, females have what's called estrus, a visible, unmistakable signal that they're fertile. Human females lost this. Somewhere in our evolutionary history, human ovulation became concealed. Even the woman experiencing it frequently doesn't know what's happening. Modern pregnancy tests exist because even with all our technology, humans still can't reliably detect their own fertility without help. Why would evolution hide this information? One theory, concealed ovulation kept males in close proximity for longer. If a male can't tell when a female is fertile, he has to stick around constantly to improve his odds. That means more time in the group, more investment, more protection, more food sharing. Another theory, it spread paternity uncertainty across multiple males, which meant multiple males had reason to protect and invest in any given child. Agriculture happens. And this is where everything changes. When humans start farming, land becomes the resource. And land is something you can own, which means for the first time in human history, it actually matters who your children are, specifically whether they're yours, because inheritance is now a thing. Suddenly, paternity uncertainty goes from a social feature to a social catastrophe. The solution across cultures with remarkable consistency was to restrict female sexuality. Monogamy becomes enforced rather than chosen. Female virginity becomes economically valuable. Adultery becomes a crime, often punishable by death, and almost always more harshly for women than men, which tells you exactly whose interests were being protected. The sexual freedom that had characterized 95% of human evolutionary history got compressed, legislated, and moralized out of existence in the space of about 10,000 years, which, on an evolutionary timeline, is nothing. A blink. Your body hasn't caught up. Your brain hasn't caught up. Studies consistently show that men in long-term relationships experience declining testosterone, their biology reading the monogamous pair bond as mission accomplished. Women in long-term relationships report declining desire for their specific partner, while desire in general remains intact. Their biology apparently optimized for variety in a way that modern relationship structures don't accommodate it. None of this means monogamy is wrong or that people can't make it work. Plenty of people do. But it does mean that when it's difficult, when desire fluctuates, when attention wanders, when the whole thing feels like swimming upstream, that's not a personal failure. That's hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary programming meeting a 10,000-year-old social invention. Your instincts were calibrated for a world that no longer exists. Ancient humans probably didn't experience sex the way we do, weighted with meaning, consequence, moral freight, identity. For most of human history, sex was closer to how we experience eating together. Intimate, yes. Social, yes. But not the site of all this narrative and anxiety and self-definition. The species that figured out how to travel to the moon and sequence the human genome is still, underneath all of it, running on hardware designed for a small group of tired, hungry primates trying to stay alive on a savanna. And those primates? They weren't thinking about meaning, they were just trying to feel okay.